Good evening and welcome to this forum for the State Representative of the 39th District. Today is July 18, 2018. This forum is sponsored by those persons who have filed for State Representative in the 39th District for the August 7, 2018 primary. There are 6 candidates on the ballot. Vote for one 2-year term. Sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters. I am Jerry Burton, a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, national, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keeps our community strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this that has great impact on local, state, and national issues. If you're interested in learning how you can become a member, I would encourage you to pick up some of our literature on the table in the rear or visit our website, lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters do not endorse any candidate or political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The forum from this format has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask the audience remain silent during the forum. Please turn off all cell phones or electronic devices. We ask the candidates to answer the questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. We will be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness by Debbie Macon and Linda DePorter, League members. Paige Ann Megalacey will be circulating with paper and pencil. And if you'd like to question, raise your hand. She'll get you a card and pencil. The format is as follows. All candidates will have 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless the time is extended by the moderator. The candidates will be allowed equal time to answer all questions. Our timer, Lenora Litwin, will indicate when it's 30 seconds and when to stop. The candidates on this ballot, this Republican, Ryan Berman, Philip Hoyt, Marsha Kamansky, Kevin Tutulian, Democrat Jennifer Sudan, and Libertarian Anthony Croft. Mr. Berman and Mr. Hoyt are not in attendance and did not respond to the league invitation. We will begin our 1 minute opening statement with Ms. Kaminsky.
It throws everyone. It's Kazmatka.
Kazmatka.
Kind of just
Kazmatka.
like no E's or I's, but it happens all the time. I'm Marsha Kazmatka. Thank you for being here tonight and for showing an interest in our election. I've lived in this area for 46 years. That's my entire life. This is where I have lived and learned and worked and prayed. I attended our public schools. I went to Loon Lake, which is not far from here, for my elementary school, then the Walt Lake Junior High and the Walt Lake Western. I then went to Central Michigan University and got a business degree, law school. Then I became a Oakland County prosecutor. I did that for a little over 7 years, and most of that time was on domestic violence felonies. I started my own law practice in 2003 that I still have. That is concentrated on doing court-appointed criminal constitutional defense work. My parents owned a business in Commerce Township for 32 years, a small automotive machine shop. So working here is what provided for my education. I've attended St. William's Catholic Church for my entire life, and that's where I had my sacraments performed. And I now live in West Bloomfield in a house that I bought 20 years ago this summer when I was 26, near Haggerty and Richardson. I've knocked a lot of doors this summer, thousands, actually in the winter starting in February, and there are people here that I saw at their doors and we've spoken on the phone. And I've really enjoyed getting to know more about the area that I've lived in and thought I knew everything about, and meeting the people that I've had an opportunity to meet. This is a short opening statement. I appreciate the opportunity, but I want to make sure that if I haven't caught you at your door, that you know that there's literature available here, that I have been passing out at doors, as well as business cards with my direct phone number and email on them so that you can reach out to me tonight, after tonight, and I'd always be willing to talk about different issues and listen to views, even if they don't match mine. State representative, whoever is elected, represents all 90,000 or so of the people that they represent. and as such, have to be open to sharing the ideas and considering all of the different perspectives of the voters while staying true to their own personal values and ideas. That is what I intend to do if elected.
Thank you, Mr. Julian.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us as well and taking part in our democracy here to hear from what the candidates have to say. My name is Julian. I'm also running for state representative. Went to schools here as well. Went to Sarah Banks Middle School, Walled Lake Western for high school, then went to Wayne State University, where I graduated with 2 bachelor degrees in political science and criminal justice. Just recently did a fellowship at Michigan State through the Michigan Political Leadership Program, which was engaging. I own a business called Mathnasium, where we teach kids math and science after school. So that's given me a very unique perspective in this race to talk about education. As well, knocking on doors, which I hope we'll get to in this forum, with no-fault auto insurance and the roads and things that voters want to talk about, every day at the doors. I look forward to the discussion. Again, thank you for coming out. And once more, Kevin Julian, who's running for state representative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sudan.
I'm so impressed that you got my last name right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and spending this beautiful Wednesday evening with us. My name is Jennifer Sudan, and like everybody else, running for state representative. And I thank the league for hosting this opportunity this evening, and I look forward to the questions from the audience. Like my previous 2 fellow candidates, I'm also a graduate of the Walled Lake School District. I went to Commerce Elementary, Clifford Smart Middle School, and then Walled Lake Central before moving on to Central Michigan University. I got double majored in psychology and in sociology with a focus on criminal justice. I graduated college into the beginning of the recession and was very fortunate to be able to come home and work in my family's business. My family has had a restaurant in Commerce Township since I was an infant. Jennifer's Cafe has been a part of our community since 1985, and in 2006, when I left college, my parents opened a second restaurant actually directly across the street from where we're sitting right now. I was fortunate to come home, to be able to stay in Michigan, to have a job, and to be able to be near my family as I started out on my own as an adult. I worked my way into professional political work, and I have worked for the last 5 years as a legal assistant working on election law and campaign finance issues. It has been very rewarding. It has been a great pleasure to be able to to spend my 20s working in an area that I am so personally passionate about. I decided to run for state representative because I believe that I want to be the voice of our community in Lansing. I would like to go and fight to keep our schools fully funded and strong, that every child in the state deserves the same kind of quality education that the 3 of us have received. I don't know where you went to school, so I will really up with it. To fix these roads and to protect our water. And I have also been walking doors this summer and have really just had a wonderful opportunity meeting, but I'm sorry.
Mr. Croft.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, sorry about that, for inviting me. I appreciate it. I don't have a long history like everybody up here do. I'm only 26, so my history is very short, but I'm Anthony Croft. I'm 26, I work in retail. I am a libertarian constitutionalist. My biggest goal is to make the state of Michigan a public constitutional state again, and that's it. I'm looking forward to answering questions, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Now is the time for questions, and our first question, we'll start with Ms. Kazmaka. The Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion, what are your views?
I'm sorry, I was concentrating on my name. Can you say that question again? You did it perfectly.
The Affordable Care Act. 1 minute, yes. And Medicaid expansion.
Where do I stand was your question?
Yeah.
Well, I think the Affordable Care Act has not proven to do what it said it was going to do. Of course, we were told that we could keep our doctors and that we could keep our plans. That has certainly not happened for me. I am 46 years old, and my premiums have almost doubled. I paid near $700 a month for my insurance. My deductible went from $2,000 to $7,000 a year. And even when I meet my deductible, I'm still responsible for 20%, even after making that. So I don't think it's proven to do what it said that it would do. I think that the answer is to have competition and to have choices. In regards to Medicaid expansion, when you say where I stand on that, I'm not certain what the question is. It has been expanded. I think it's going to come up again about whether or not it should be expanded. The expansion was intended to allow people during the recession that Jennifer talked about to kind of get on their feet again. The economy is robust now, and I think that we have to be concerned about Medicaid expansion.
Thank you. Mr. Tertullian.
I think that Medicaid expansion and the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, was a mistake. I think it has caused us to say that our insurance has skyrocketed as a business owner. Talking to other business owners, I know how hard it is to provide now health insurance. If you're a small business under 50 employees, regulations you have to do. But it's also important to remember with any legislation, there's no one way or the other way. I mean, there's great things that came from it, particularly that you can stay on your parents' insurance through 26 so you can graduate, find a job, find the ability before you have to be that. Also, pre-existing conditions is something that was very favorable because no one should be denied coverage simply because they've had a medical cause before. But overall, as far as Medicaid expansion, the Affordable Care Act, I think it has hurt our federal government. It's going to hurt our state government when the federal government stops matching the funds in 2019. And I think it was a serious mistake to go down that road. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
I think that one of the greatest legacies that Rick Snyder is going to leave office as governor was the expansion of Medicaid, which was called Healthy Michigan. It helped to get hundreds of thousands of Michigan residents access to quality health insurance, which is critical because no one in this state should face bankruptcy or fear death because they get sick. Michigan can provide this, and it should provide this. I think that it was a good thing for our legislature to have taken on and for the governor to have signed. And I think that if it comes up for renewal, that we should absolutely continue to expand it. Helping ensure that people have access to health insurance should be a right for all of our citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Croft.
There is some good things in Obamacare, bad things in Obamacare. Healthcare is something that's very important, and it's something that we need to really think about. But I do want to say this: anytime you leave government up to healthcare, it will always be against the people. And so I do think that government needs to get out of healthcare. I don't think, as you see, the best we can do is Obamacare, and it has a lot of issues. So I believe healthcare should be up to people, families, and the community.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Mr. Tertullian. Michigan's no-fault law. Repeal it, replace it, or revise it?
Thank you for that question, Jerry. I think the form is we need to revise it. I think eliminating it completely will help with the benefits that people are receiving that are very popular in Michigan because they were promised those benefits, particularly the catastrophic care on it. But we also cannot be the automotive nation state of the world and have the most expensive auto insurance in the country, bar none. I think that there needs to be reforms, whether we start looking into fraud, whether we start looking at negligence, whether we start looking into why doctors are charging 10 times for the same x-ray that they do when you come in with private insurance, whether it's attorneys who are ambulance chasers who are trying to make as much money as they can. I mean, there's multiple things that go into it, but at the end, when I knock doors and I talk to seniors and I talk to kids who are going to universities, it is the #1 issue because it is simply becoming unaffordable for way too many families in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
So is repeal, revise, or replace?
Yes.
I think I agree with Kevin. We should revise our auto no-fault law. There are plenty of benefits that the auto no-fault plan as it exists now provides that are very, very beneficial, especially in the instance of a catastrophic accident. We have an MCCA, the Catastrophic Claims Account, in this state that is very well funded and not utilized. We need to find a way and understand better why it's there and how it can be used. And we need an insurance auditor who is going to be there on the side of people and not on the side of insurance companies, So whether that is investigating into fraud or looking into all the things that make all of our auto insurance premiums so sky high, there is a solution, and it's going to take work to get to the bottom to it, and it will take revising the auto no fault law.
Thank you, Mr. Croft.
Repeal. I think we need to repeal it. First of all, the state do not have a constitutional right to force auto insurance on its people. Auto insurance is not a government program. It is a private business, and to force that on people is unconstitutional. So I think we need to repeal it, but I'm not against auto insurance, but forcing it on people is unconstitutional.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzma.
Thank you. Again, I agree with the fact that we need to revise auto no fault. There are many good things, as has already been stated about auto no fault, but there are other things that go into insurance rates, like the fact that we are not insuring the person, but insuring the number of vehicles. So if you have more than one vehicle, you are insuring each one of those vehicles. And for families that have 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, with their teenagers or with the multiple people living in their house, they are paying rates individually on those cars and instead of for the per person. Also, I am an attorney. I've worked in courts for 20 years on pretty much a daily basis, and the fraud is astronomical. The costs rise. We need tort reform to go along with revising no fault.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Sudan. What are your thoughts on how we can improve Michigan's infrastructure?
You have 1 minute. Okay. Let's start at something that I think we can all agree with. These heavy trucks that drive on our roads are not fined for the damage that they do. Let's start there. Let's start with fees for these heavy trucks that use Michigan to drive through, which are creating this kind of damage. There are ways to invest in our infrastructure, to replace our roads, to fix our bridges, and protect our water that don't involve adding on more user fees, like we saw with our registration going up a few years back when the so-called roads bill passed in 2015. We need to look at other opportunities in other states that have done this well, like in the state of Texas, where they have private-public partnerships to fix their roads. But those companies that win those bids are responsible for the materials that they use and the quality of the projects that they complete. And I think that is necessary. This oversight and having consequences for falling short is also critical.
Thank you, Mr. Croft.
The biggest problems we have is roads. And I believe the problem lies because we put that responsibility on the government. The roads are called the public roads for a reason. They are responsible of road maintenance. It belongs to the people, not to the government. We have relied on the government for all these years, and look at the result. Our roads are terrible. They are the worst in the union. We can fix it, but we have to stop depending on the same people who don't fix it. So my thing is the people can fix the roads if every community come together and hire private construction companies to fix the roads. I say private because accountability is the real key. We cannot hold the government accountable for the roads because the government is too powerful. But we can hold private companies accountable. So if our roads don't get fixed, we can sue them. Accountability is always the key.
Thank you, Ms. Kamanka.
Again, it's tough for a 1-minute question, and some of the things have been covered, but one of the biggest things is going to be prevailing wage. It's something that has been signed through the House and the Senate at this point, is awaiting signature by Governor Snyder. We're going to have to wait to see if that's done. Prevailing wage indicates that there is an arbitrary amount of money that is spent because any private companies that are hired have to be paid at union rates. And so there isn't competition there. And then there is a lack of ability to enforce the warranties that Ms. Sudan referenced because we are going to be relying on the union. So I think that's a big part of it. Secondly, we need to really pay attention not only to the state race that we're here about, but to our federal representatives. As a donor state federally, we are having our funds that are paid at our gas pumps redistributed to other states that are donee states. And until there is a change in that formula, we are going to continue to lose.
Thank you, Mr. Tutulian.
So far, our solution, the government solution to fixing our roads has been consistently to increase our taxes. When 80% of the people in Michigan voted no on Prop 1, the legislature still went ahead and passed taxes, which the gas tax is probably the most regressive tax on the working poor because it affects them to go to their jobs. So instead of continuously raising our taxes and causing potholes that are still not fixed, what we need to do is we need to build higher quality roads. We need to invest more in the front. We got to put special lubricants in our roads that states use to have snow and water, so water doesn't get into and expand through the crack when it freezes over the winter. But we have to hold our contractors responsible. When we buy products, when we buy televisions or dishwashers, we always ask, what's the warranty, what's the extended warranty, what comes? We have to make sure these contractors are held accountable to make sure that our roads at the municipal level, local level, and state level are fixed to make sure we don't have these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Croft. Do you support legalizing marijuana?
I'm a libertarian, obviously I do. But I do want to say this. I have never smoked marijuana a day in my life. I don't want to start, and I won't start if it is legalized. But I do want to say this. Too much of anything is out of control. So if we do legalize it, self-control is the biggest thing. And marijuana is one of those escape systems that the government use to distract us of our enslavement that we are in right now. So I do not promote smoking marijuana, but I do want to legalize it because it's not a crime to smoke it or to be in possession of it. And victimless crimes is the real crime here in Michigan.
Thank you. Ms. Kamaka.
Again, after being in courts for 20 years, specifically in the criminal arena, as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, I cannot in good conscience support it. The medical marijuana laws that were passed, and there were very good arguments for it, I can assure you, as they stand right now, are a mess. What we see in the courts, and Jessica's working on my campaign, worked in the courts for 15 years, are people who are basically being entrapped into felonies because the laws are so confusing that they think that they are following the medical marijuana rules. They are making every effort to do it. They are reaching out to their governments to make sure that they're doing it right. And then they come to find out that they're not. And they find themselves wrapped up into felonies. There is also no roadside test for marijuana the way there is for alcohol in regards to a roadside PBT. And until that exists, it's not a victimless crime and it puts everyone in danger. Colorado tried this experiment. You don't have to look too hard to find out that they thought it was going to give them huge increases in their revenue. What they've seen is about 1.2% increase. They will indicate that they don't know what the long-term loss may be because their youth use after legalization went up over 70%. Their car fatalities went up as well as emergency care costs.
Mr. Tertullian.
Thank you. I am personally against the legalization of marijuana. I think in my business that I deal with teaching with educators and parents, I know what the side effects of those are, particularly starting at a young age. But I also respect and will always respect the will of the people. The will of the people, it will be on the ballot. The people will have a choice on it, yes or no, on November. And even if I am personally against it, if the people choose to vote for it, I will respect that, and I will always, again, respect the will of voters of the state of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
Like Kevin said, this will be on the ballot in November, and I similarly will respect the will of the voters. I personally don't have an opinion either way about whether or not marijuana should be legalized. If there is a way that we can safely make sure that there is a roadside test so that it can be regulated like alcohol, then let's do it. But it's not, right now, it's not going to be up to the legislature to decide. It's up to all of you and all of us. It's going to the voters in November.
Thank you. Next question will start with Ms. Kamaka. Do you support minimum wage proposal?
Increase the minimum wage. The minimum wage proposal.
I don't know what the proposal is, but there's something on the ballot about.
Yeah, it's an increase.
Yeah, it's an increase. So I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding the phrasing. Do I support increasing the minimum wage, or no, I don't? Again, and clearly, you're going to have differences of opinion because this is a meet and greet and it's candidates on all sides, and we have a libertarian. So you're getting a little bit of everything. But again, when you increase the minimum wage, what you're going to find is is the businesses being affected, and overall it is not going to be something that is beneficial. It's difficult to give a full answer on that in a minute, but there are many reasons economically, and with a business major and being a business owner, as Kevin has indicated, that it hurts small business, and it actually is not a good thing for the workers over a long period of time. Again, we will be around. I'm sure all of us would be happy to kind of expand on the views beyond a minute, but that is not something that I support.
Thank you. Mr. Tutulian.
As well, just for clarity, it is not on the ballot. There's no minimum wage proposal as of yet. But I would personally be against an increase in minimum wage. What I do support is what the legislature has already passed with the governor. It's an increase in minimum wage after so many years to climb with the rate of inflation. I think all of us support that as prices go up, so should wages. But I will tell you, as you can see going to your local McDonald's, when wages go way too high, labor is going to be replaced by machines. Capital is going to be replaced by machines. And what's going to happen is these, I would say kids, these high school kids who are trying to get experience of a first-time job are not going to be able to have it because owners cannot afford to keep paying rising costs without raising their product. If they raise their product, basic economics, there's going to be less people using it. So in a very simple way, I do not support an increase in minimum wage, but I do support minimum wage increasing with the rate of inflation.
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
A little more clarification. Maybe we'll get there by the end of this 4 minutes. The proposal that is being considered to be brought to the November ballot would actually continue what the legislature started, which would be an increase in the minimum wage over a period of time that would go up every year in January for a total of 5 years. The minimum wage as it is presently is not a living wage. And it is a fallacy that the only people who are trying to make a living off of minimum wage are high school students. There are plenty of adults who are trying to make a living off of the current minimum wage. And in this state, you could not both drive a car with full insurance and work one job, one full-time job at minimum wage and be able to make all of your financial commitments. We need to do more to make sure that the working people of this state are working and not becoming the working poor. And if this ballot proposal does come to the ballot, I will support it.
Thank you. Mr. Croft.
I agree with my Republican people over there. Minimum wage should not be increased. It does kill small businesses, and I'm not in the role of killing small businesses. But minimum wage rises a different question. The reason why the state wants to raise the minimum wage, and that's because, like he said, the inflation is rising. And the thing is, inflation is not when prices go up. Inflation is the increase of the money supply. Now, every time they want to raise the minimum wage, that means our dollar is losing more and more of its value. So every time you hear the state say, let's raise the minimum wage, you know that we're getting closer and closer to a financial collapse. No minimum wage increase.
Do you support the promote the vote proposal?
Yes.
Mr. Vermont.
Straight and to the point. I have more concerns, I'm sure you're not shocked at this point, than Ms. Sudan does. Obviously, we want to promote the idea that everyone would come out to vote. Unfortunately, we see such a low turnout, particularly in our primaries and in non-presidential years when so many important decisions are made. But we already have very serious concerns with voter fraud that have not been addressed. We have people with double voting, we have people that are deceased and are voting. And what that does, if we are not careful, is dilute the vote of the people that do come out to vote and do it properly. And I have concerns with same-day registration unless there are significant advances in technology, because there is no way to do verification that way. I agree with Jennifer that it can be difficult to vote on a Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. But we all need to take steps to participate in our democracy. And while we have she supports no reason absentee, and you can only get an absentee if you're over 60. There are provisions so that if you're going to be out of town, if you are sick, if there is some kind of emergency, that if you are under the age of 60, you have the option to absentee vote.
Thank you. Mr. Tutulian.
I don't necessarily support that particular provision of promote the vote, but I do support more people voting. I think the most fundamental right that we as Americans enjoy is the right to vote. It's the right to vote freely. It's the right to vote when we choose, whether it's a vote of protest, whether it's a vote in accordance, we have that right. But it has to be balanced. I mean, we have to balance the ability to vote, be able to safely vote. No one person's vote is more important than somebody else's vote. No one person should be able to vote twice. No one person should be able to have a Florida home and vote absentee in Florida, but also vote in Michigan. No person should be able to do multiple of those things. Our Secretary of State have to clean up the rolls. We have to find a way to make sure that the deceased don't vote, but we also have to promote our youth to go vote, people who are first turn 18 to go vote, whether it's during registration drives in colleges or other opportunities. We have to make sure that they're getting engaged, but I'll tell you, the number one way of getting people engaged when I go door to door is making sure that when candidates campaign, they deliver on their promises. If people see that the government's actually working for them and not special interests, they'll go out to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Cross. Do you support the gerrymandering, establish a nonpartisan committee to establish voting districts?
I have looked at this a couple of times. I don't really have an opinion on this because I really isn't relevant. I am a libertarian, and most of the time we barely get on the ballot to begin with. And I don't even think we have registered libertarian voters in Michigan. So I'm working with my party, and we're trying to do that this year because we are a major party this year. So I don't have an opinion on that really, because like I said, the libertarians are not really in that group of Republicans and Democrats in the many districts we have here in Michigan. But when we do grow the party, I think it's very important that all parties get treated fairly and get, a fair amount of exposure. So on that question, I really don't have a big opinion because libertarians we don't have no registered libertarians here in Michigan, unfortunately.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzmika.
I do not support this proposal in any way, shape, or form, and it's not that there are always things that can be better about anything that we're doing. But this current proposal, and if you've looked at it a couple of times, you took time finding it, because it's difficult to find the fine print in this one. The proposal for this gerrymandering is purported to come from 25% of the Secretary of State's budget. So we've already talked about voter fraud, and people complain about lines at Secretary of State or waits or trying to get the simple things done like getting the tabs for your car. This proposal is telling you that they want to take a quarter of that budget and use a lottery system, of just choosing 9 people kind of from random to start to do this process. That is so important. It is required already to be fair, constitutional, and legal, and it can be challenged in courts. So it's something that can always, there can always be improvements in anything that we're doing, but this absolutely is not the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Julian.
I also agree that this is not the answer. They're having they're having arguments today in front of the Michigan Supreme Court in regards to that, so we'll see where the Supreme Court heads with this. But I'll tell you, I mean, a lot of people hear gerrymandering and they think that there's somebody that, Republicans win or Democrats win, and they all get in a room and they say, well, this is how we retain majority, this is what we do. That's just not as simple as that. I mean, from our Civil Rights Act of 1965, every state has to have 2 minority-majority districts. So for example, our 14th and 13th are minority-majority because that is what the Civil Rights Act to make sure that minorities are represented. That's very important to look at, and that could be something that, if seen necessary, could be reformed to get that. But as far as this proposal, as far as having 9 people selected from a pool of people and saying, you guys draw the lines, that's not the way to go, and that's not the way to make sure elections stay fair.
Thank you, Ms. Sudan.
Okay, I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about what this proposal does. It's 9 people who put their own name in who have an interest in making sure that these lines are drawn by the people who will be represented by the politicians and not the other way around. Because when we have seen time and time again, and not just in Michigan, that when the politicians get to pick their districts, they do not reflect the will of the voters. That when you have 51% of people cast a Democratic ballot for a member of Congress, and we have 5 members out of 14, that is clearly out of whack with the balance of the way that our citizens vote. I strongly support the Voters Not Politicians proposal. I think that there are ways that it's going to clearly need to be made stronger and clearer through the court system, because it's going through a ballot question instead of through legislation. And frankly, I think they've done good work in trying to fix a problem that has really affected the political nature of our state.
Thank you. Next question will start with Ms. Kuzmatka. Do you support the repeal of the pension tax?
I support the repeal of the pension tax as it was written and passed and it stands now. This is one of the biggest things that's come up to me at doors. And I, as of today, have been at over 4,000 doors. And this is concerning it affected my father, who falls within the age ranges that were affected. Again, there are going to have to be reforms made over time. But there are people who planned for a certain system a certain way. They worked for a long time, as I mentioned earlier. My dad owned a business for 32 years and made plans based on a system that he was told he could rely on. So when we implement changes, and there have been talks about changing social security ages and things like this pension tax, if there are going to be changes made, there needs to be a reflection in time so that people can adjust to that in terms of planning and not have been promised something that they planned on and then be told after working for 30, 35, 40 years and they're in their 70s that there's going to be a new change.
Thank you, Mr. Tertullian.
Thank you. I think what we've seen under Republican leadership, Governor Snyder and Lieutenant Governor Kelly, is we've been able to bring 500,000 new jobs. We've been able to reform Michigan. We've been able to get rid of the small business tax that was the #1 job killer in the state of Michigan. But we always talk about the population. Why is the population of Michigan not increasing? The population is not increasing because of the tax system. 7 states have a no income tax. And for our pension, for our seniors who were promised, and they were told that you can retire with X amount of money, these are seniors who are on fixed income. They don't have the ability to go get another job. They don't have an ability to get extra income. They were told they're gonna have X amount of money when they retire, and unfortunately our government took that promise away from them. If I'm in the legislature, I can guarantee that I will repeal the Michigan pension tax on our seniors.
Thank you, Ms. Sudan.
Going for the hat trick, yeah, I support repealing the senior pension tax. Hear it again. Seniors have worked very hard. You made a plan. We went back on our promise to you, and we should not be taxing the senior pension.
That's it.
Mr.
It's
Cross.
just redundant.
This may be redundant, but taxation is theft. So I will repeal just about a lot of taxes we have today. Taxation have the same definition of theft. Theft means to take without consent. Taxation means take without consent. The exact same definition. Until we can get a system that don't steal from the people, then and only then we can talk about taxes. Taxes should be only optional. There is a way we can fund everything in the state without forcing taxes on everybody. It's theft. Theft is never an answer and is never justified. Taxation is theft. So I'll repeal anything that deal with taxes, unless we can get an economy that don't steal from the people.
Thank you. Next question will start with Mr. Tertullian. Do you support using current funds earmarked for public schools to be used by private schools?
Current earmarks that are for public schools to be used by private schools?
Yes.
No, I do not support that at all. Private schools are by that definition private. If someone chooses to be enrolled in a private school, they know that comes with tuition, and that comes with the responsibility to make our public school dollars that we pay for our local property tax and our sales tax has to go through public schools. Now, whether if we're talking about public charter schools or public regular public schools or vocational schools or different types of schools, that's one thing. But for private education, that comes with tuition that parents usually choose to make if they want to invest in that, and then that's where the funds should come. They should not come from local taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
No, public school funds should not be diverted to private schools. Private schools have tuition, they have other means of revenue, and they should not be taking money that needs to be put into our public school system. We already don't fully fund our public schools, and anything that's going to take money away from that needs to be seriously considered, and this should absolutely never even be an option.
Thank you. Mr. Croft.
No. I'm not big on private or public schools. I'm more for homeschooling. I think our public and private schools are indoctrinating our children, and it's not really teaching them anything but regurgitation. So, our schools don't teach real economics, real science, don't teach the way the money works or the way the government actually works. So, funding schools to me, that should be up to the people. I think the government should get out of it. So, no.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzmanka.
Thank you. We agree on an answer, and I would echo what Kevin said, in that no, there shouldn't be a diversion to private schools. There should be competition in charter schools or a version of public schools that create options and also create competition and create different opportunities for parents to make decisions for their children. But there shouldn't be a diversion of public funds for private schools.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Sudan, and I'll give you a minute and a half on this one because it's going to be a good one.
We're gonna get more time to politicians. It's dangerous.
How would you address gun violence in Michigan and our schools? I know it
Suddenly a
can't
minute
be
and a half
answered in a minute
seems-
and a half.
Yeah, suddenly a minute and a half doesn't seem like enough. Okay. Wow. Let's start with passing red flag laws. I don't want to take away any lawful, legal right to own a gun. But I do think that we need to make sure that there are background checks and that we aren't in a situation after a mass shooting where we have to talk about the mental health of the person who got the gun. I'm not interested in a conversation that a criminal will always get a gun and therefore we don't need rules, because that's a bad rule of thumb to follow in every other aspect of our life. We owe it to the children of this state to do better for all of them so they don't go to school wondering, is today the day that my school is the one that has an active shooter? Because right now, there's a majority of high school students who really think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And what does that do to them in the way that they think about school, in the way that they think about their personal safety, and their development? We need to make sure that kids are kept safe in their schools. I believe that schools should be a gun-free zone, and that we should do everything in our power to make sure that kids are safe in their schools. Parents shouldn't be worried when they send their kids to school that they are not coming home at the end of the day. That it's simply unthinkable that that is a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Croft.
First of all, criminals will have access to weapons. They call them criminals because they don't do anything by the law. There is nothing people in Lansing can write on a sheet of paper that will stop criminals from getting guns. It's unrealistic to think that, and I'm not an unrealistic person. So, and not only that, there's nothing that Lansing can do to take away our unalienable right to own the weapon. I don't care if they make a law in Lansing to prohibit us from having guns. It's unconstitutional. I will be on the front line to be against the government on that. I do believe in protest. I'll be the first person to protest. Protest against the government is very important. When they want to take our guns, it's time to protest. Now, when you talk about school safety, I went to schools where you have security guards, heavy surveillance, metal detectors, and I can tell you all the truth, it don't work. Kids still came in with guns, drugs were still in school, bullying was still in school. If anything, heavy surveillance and metal detectors that made our criminals who were in schools even better, because they know how to hide them better. So I am against any heavy surveillance. We don't treat our children like criminals. We're gonna start acting like criminals. So I'm not for that, but at the end of the day, we must make legislation to keep those who do obey the law, make it so they can protect themselves.
Thank you. Ms. Kuzmanka.
Thank you. And it is tough to answer that, and it's a two-part question in a minute and a half, but I'm going to go back to being in the courts, and I am going to say that I'm going to agree, we're not going to get guns away from criminals, and it may not be a conversation with Sudan likes to have or wants to hear about it, but it's just a fact. They're out there. And so once there are some out in the community, they're there and they're available. So restrictive gun laws only affect law-abiding citizens who are going to follow them. And Ms. Sudan also referenced that she supports having schools be gun-free zones, but she indicated that we have an increase in gun shootings at schools. So it's not working. It makes them a soft target, which is the opposing idea to the gun-free zones. We don't need soft targets that scream, there are no weapons here, and this is the place to come if you're looking to act out your violence in a way that you can do so unopposed for a period of time. So the kids do need to be protected, but the answer isn't to take away guns from law-abiding citizens. We do have a psychological problem in this country. And it has to start with the parents and parents that are home and involved with their children from a very young age. And just to piggyback on a question that was asked earlier, when we're talking about having problems with gun violence in schools, this is absolutely not the time to introduce marijuana recreationally into people who are of those school ages.
Thank you, Mr. Tertullian.
I think it's absolutely clear that we have a constitutional right to bear arms. I think that that's something that can never, ever come to compromise or something that we can take. It comes after the First Amendment for a specific reason. As far as schools, I think when you start saying gun-free zones, or you start looking at the places that are gun-free, right? The same thing with drug-free zones, right? They think just because it says a free zone, then nothing's going to happen. Where do these mass shootings happen? They happen at schools, at movie theaters, at churches, at public venues. We just saw what happened in Las Vegas last year. But they don't happen at police stations. They don't happen at military bases. They don't happen at gun range. If guns were the problem, gun shows and gun ranges would be the #1 place where guns commit because there's the most guns there. But somehow, that's where the least amount of crime happens. Guns do prevent more crimes when reasonable in the hands of reasonable law-abiding citizens. When I went to school at Western, we had an armed Walled Lake Western deputy, or Oakland County deputy at Walled Lake Western Schools. That was a deterrent factor. And additionally, we have to see what's going on. What causes a child from when we see these school shootings, to go home, bring a gun, and take 30 innocent lives with them. I mean, I remember a time when if you had a problem with somebody, you went out into out for recess, you talked to them, we joined a sport, or we took out the anger. I mean, we have to see what's going on mentally in our families, this family breakdown system, or what's going on for a child to take an AK-47 or a machine gun or something and come out to school and take 30 innocent lives. It's wrong, but taking guns away from law-abiding citizens is not the answer.
Thank you. Next question will start with Mr. Croft. The Nestle Bottling Company has increased the limit of removing water from the state of Michigan. What are your thoughts?
Don't really have thoughts on that. My biggest problem with our water is we are supposed to be the cleanest water state in the union, but we still have fluoride in our water. I am against fluoride water. It numbs the brain. If we can get that out of water, I think we'll be doing just fine. I actually is against bottled water anyway, because the chemicals they use to bottle that up, if it stays, how long the bottled water stays on the shelf, it goes into the water and contaminates it. So bottled water, period, is not healthy for our bodies anyway. So if you're going to drink water in a bottle, hope it's a glass bottle. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuzmatka.
Thank you. Could you please, I know you said that there were rising costs with Nestle. Can you please repeat it?
They've increased the amount that Nestle can take. What are your thoughts? I guess it was, and I'm just guessing the number, it was 2.5 million and they increased it to 4 million or something per day gallons.
Yes, and I do think it's a concern. It's our #1. We are the largest holder of natural water resource in the country in many parts of the world, and I think that we do have to balance that. There isn't a reason that a private company that is bringing in private funds should be taking so much of a public source. They shouldn't be restricted from running their company, but I do think that that's something that should be balanced.
Mr. Tertullian.
Yeah, I don't think that a private company can take an increase in public water, put it in a plastic bottle, sell it, and then keep the profits above them. We're seeing in cities like Flint, and it's not just Flint. I mean, we can start looking at Benton Harbor, we can start looking at other areas where Kalamazoo, where the lead level, if not as high, is either that high or even higher. I think that we have to look and see what is going on. Are we giving these permits to these companies to, again, to take our fresh water, put it in bottles and sell it without any money coming back to us to fix our infrastructure or to fix the water crisis that we've already experienced?
Thank you. Ms. Sudan.
I agree. I have no problem with companies doing what they do, but you can't come and continue to increase the amount of water that you get from us while continuing to pay pennies for it and not giving anything back to the state that you are taking from. And Nestle is a really good example of it, and it lined up quite conspicuously with the state stopping providing water to the people of Flint who still don't have clean water. What Nestle has done, and like Kevin pointed out, there are other areas in our state that have water problems, but because they haven't become a national water crisis yet, they haven't broken the news. There's issue outside of Grand Rapids right now where carcinogens were dumped into a public water source. These kind of companies, I think we can create a good balanced relationship with them where they're not just taking and where and a fair payment for what they take.
Thank you. This will be the last question prior to the closing remarks, and we will start with Ms. Kazmatka. If elected, what are the two issues that you want to bring before the legislature?
The two biggest issues that I hear over and over and that are of biggest concern to me are the infrastructure and auto insurance rates.
Mr. Tutulian.
I hear the same thing, and it's roads and no call auto insurance, but not to say the same thing, to give two issues I think we should look into is the increasing cost of higher education, which is becoming unaffordable for middle class families, and also when our children do graduate from college or high school, how can we make sure that they're either vocational programs or college degrees that are job attainable, and making sure that those loans can get paid because those skills are actually marketable.
Ms. Sudan.